Welcome to Macro Magic. I'm Sheri-Lynn DeMaris, and with me today is Ann Wilkinson. She was actually on our show 2 years ago, so welcome back, Ann. She is a body worker, and she's going to share with us all her travels and information about changing from probably more of a medical model in the beginning to what she does now, which is more spiritual healing and working with all sorts of people from around the world. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how did you get into this work?
I think I was born into it, really. I had a birth defect when I was born, and I ended up kind of in an experimental type situation in a hospital where I had to go back every few years and have repeat surgeries. I was born with my fingers webbed together, and so when they cut it, then I would grow and they would have to modify it. And in that day, though, things were so different in medicine. I don't want to date myself so much, but it was very different. Like when you went to the hospital, you had to be well for 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after you had anything. So I got stuck in there sometime for months. And I was the only little kid that could kind of run around. Everyone else was in wheelchairs and body casts and things. So I really feel like my work started then. And then I put myself through school and worked very hard to become a physical therapist. I really wanted to be a doctor, but I just didn't have the financial backing to do that. So I was like the next best thing. And I also wanted my focus on being to make people live. I want anything to do with knocking people out. Having the ether on my face, it's like one of my worst nightmares. The needles were real big for little kids at that time, so any kind of nursing, anything to do with that, I could have done to be a physician if I didn't have to do residency. I was like, why would I practice putting a chest tube in someone when I've never done that? Like, I just couldn't make myself right about it. So the great news is, about 15 years into my physical therapy career, they offered a certificate in osteopathy. Now, in the meantime, in between those two things, I had studied homeopathy, and I also got a PhD in philosophy, the application of spirituality to medicine. Now, tell me that's fun. And actually, what I learned is that God really has given us, short of severing a limb or needing a transplant, God really has given us everything we need. And so, for instance, my sister and I, we have the same little ailments. And my sister, like, she dresses in A-line and she wears makeup and all, and I tend to be a little more free-spirited, wearing clothes that she would probably never put on and hair, free. So she might go to she got a meniscus tear and she went to the doctor and she got an arthroscopic surgery and she did it that way. I did detoxing, anti-inflammatory, mobilized my knee. I actually put it back in place doing a yoga pose. Now, it took me a year to put my knee back in place. And so I'm not sure who really rehabbed faster, but I don't have a scar on my knee, we'll say. So, so my sister and I, it's just kind of interesting that we approach illnesses and, from a different way. So for instance, when I was here 2 years ago, I had just started putting garlic and black salve on little spots on my body. I was getting these basal cells. I was also told that my cholesterol was high and I had a fatty liver and there was something else, pre-diabetic. So I said to my doctor, well, obviously what we're doing together is not working, so I don't mean to be mean, I really like you and everything, but you're fired. And I'll be doing something completely different, I'm not gonna take cholesterol medicine. I treat patients, their legs leave function, from it. I can't do that, knowing that, so I've got to come up with something different, and I don't think you'll be able to help me. Thank God. The COVID restrictions were lifted about a year after I saw you last. And I was able to go to India and do something called a Panch Karma.
Wow.
Now, lucky for me, in that year, so I was here last and I was talking to you about the book Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer and how they teach you to think. In this book, Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer, Dr. Naram, one of my favorite teachers, a doctor, that has translated the Vedic scriptures. So the things he's teaching us are 3,500 years old, and they still work very well. And everything you need is in your kitchen. So there's the book and my little grandbabies. And we have little coloring books now for them because there's no reason why children shouldn't learn early on how to do this. I believe that my purpose on the planet Earth maybe to change how we teach health class. And I'd love to have a school and teach health in a way that the parents want to come on the weekends to catch up with what the children are learning. So in other words, if my 3-year-old grandchild could come to me and say, Nani, I need arnica, I bumped my head, or what is coming out of my nose is green, I need pulsatilla. If they can do that, if we used our health class time wisely, I could graduate people doing the work that I'm doing with 4 degrees when they're 18 years old. I don't really see why a 16 or 18-year-old couldn't look at someone and say, oh, your posture, you're really tight in here. Maybe when we work out, we should emphasize opening you up, and we should do the cobra from yoga. Like, there's just no reason why they can't be having that kind of conversation.
Yeah, and often, I mean, teaching all these medical solutions and not looking at the whole body or the whole healing aspect of the body, kids end up really afraid, you know, and they grow up to adults and they keep that fear with them, not knowing, you know, that there's alternatives. We're going to have Chris Beats Cancer on our show this afternoon, and he is this amazing young guy who healed himself from cancer, and he takes in all these people who, you know, are scheduled for surgery, and he's like, wait, put it on hold, you know, take 30 more days, tell your doctor, and start to work on changing your diet.
You bring up 2 really great points. Fear and this, like, somehow separating the body, forgetting that the leg bone's connected to the hip. For some reason, we have forgotten that very basic principle, and that's caused us a lot of problems. We're not moving in a good direction in health in America. In fact, the UN did a study 2 or 3 years ago that said that the health of women and children in our country is declining more rapidly than they've ever seen in the history of the world. That concerns me.
Well, if you think of the whole world, or at least in the United States, the obesity problem and fatty liver, you know, overeating processed foods.
I don't know if you're aware.
And starts to lead to all these other, you know, cancer, heart disease.
They're recommending now surgery and medication for as early as 12 years old for obesity. I honestly, I have to really remove myself because I'm a little bit empathic. And so when I like see people, a young person who's on 5 medications, they're like, they have no social, they don't really aren't aware of anything beyond their skin. It's hard for me. And I'd love to get, like, honestly, some of those kids, I really feel like if we would take them to the wilderness and get them detoxed, teach them social skills again, give them healthy food, because they just eat like coffee and pizza. Like, let's try a little bit of experiment with what you eat and then see if we need medicine. We do that for animals. If you go to a good vet today and you say, my dog is itchy, and they just seem miserable, and the good vet will say, put them on organic chicken and rice and fruit and vegetables, mix that up with coconut oil and flaxseed for 1 month, and let's see what's left. And you're going to find out that 9 times out of 10, the food is what's causing them an aggravation.
Absolutely, the food makes your blood. So
this other topic you brought up, fear. Okay. Love really is the key for healing. First of all, if I love myself to take really good care of myself, and I've taken much better care of myself in the last 2 years. As a matter of fact, I got my blood work done in India, and after spending 1 year on the principles of what I think and more careful about what I'm eating, taking a 100-day class on understanding doshas and self-care, just oiling my body, just knowing that I can take care of my colon, my nose, my eyeballs, my joints, like just giving me those reins back again. I have to tell you, then I did the punch karma. I did my blood work. I was my ideal weight. My cholesterol was fine. I had no more fatty liver and no more prediabetes. Now, I want to just tell you that no one said to me a few years ago, you have this, but this is how we can get rid of it. There was no discussion about removing these dysfunctions from my body. So when you ask me my title, I have a degree in physical therapy. I have a degree in health administration and how to educate the public and lead them. I have a degree in philosophy that focused on the application of spirituality to medicine, and then I have an osteopathic certificate. I have to be honest, and then I studied homeopathy from the time I was 27. I was cured of 27 years of allergies with a remedy like this. And now I'm studying Ayurvedic medicine. Will I ever stop studying? I don't think so. Because I've met some new doctors in this last year that there's these B3 bands that if you exercise with them for 20 minutes, your body thinks that you exercised for 5 hours, and it kickstarts your hormones.
I need some of those.
And I'm telling you, so I'm playing with those, and I'm recommending them to some clients. I'm using the rebounder so that my knees don't take the brunt of exercising as hard as I have in the past. So I'm having a lot of fun because in the self-care, I learned like what foods aggravate maybe maybe a hot temper or maybe that aggravate my joints and all. And so I'm learning what things should I steer clear of and what things do I emphasize. So for me personally, pumpkins and squashes and easy to digest foods are really, my belly's real happy than it's ever been, you know, and so I like it. Let's start from the beginning. When you have an illness or you're sick, you want someone to remove it. I have found homeopathy to be super helpful, and we'll have a little clip that'll explain more, but homeopathy electromagnetically works on a system of our body called the fascia. It's our electromagnetic body. It's like the jello that's all in everything. It's kind of like also like a body stocking. So it's like a body stocking filled with jello, and like the bones and everything else are kind of stuck in it, like a jello salad. That system gets maybe 1 or 2 lines in a medical book. Meanwhile, it is maybe the most vital system of our entire body. It's why you can put a remedy on your tongue and stop bleeding in your toe in an instant. And the integrity of that fascia, is it wet? Is it dry? Is it brittle? Does it glide? Does it slide? That's our responsibility. We should know. Is our fascia brittle? Does it need oil? So we want to remove. So let's say someone's out of alignment. We want to put them back in alignment. But then all these things that have compensated, all these things we've gotten away with, the few extra pounds, the inflammation, that part is repair. There needs to be a repair. We're not really doing that in our country. We remove quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like this
Awful
thing.
quickly.
Yep. Oh, you know, and the fascia goes with it. You know, it's
and
like
every time you go under surgery, there's so many drugs involved, and you know your body works on discharging those for years.
We'll talk about toxins in a moment about that, but like honestly, the amount of fear that's used. So you brought up something about cancer. In India, if someone goes to the doctor and they're like, the doctor will look at them and say, "Oh, you have mouth cancer," and they say, "Oh." And the doctor gives them a remedy, and they say, "Have a good day," and they leave. Here, the amount of like people, and they're going to lose their inheritance for their children, their farm. It is so night and day. And what's interesting in India, they're treating cancer very easily, and they use a lot of homeopathics. And so for me, and we'll explain why homeopathics is one of the things that helps remove. Or you can put someone in alignment and remove, or toxins is the other thing you'll want to remove. Because literally, you can have back pain and you can have knee pain or pain in your hands and all with toxins in your body. So remove toxins, remove any malalignments, electromagnetically remove charges that may be influencing your health. Repair. Well, if you're eating the right foods and giving your body the little molecular building blocks to make good fascia, to make good muscles, there's a lot of repair. And then there's recovery. So you don't want to just not have your torn disc. You don't want to just not have belly aches or low back pain. Like, you want to be vital and vibrant, you know, and people just assume that as we age, we lose things, we lose this function, we lose this. It's so a lie. I have seen so many people who were in much worse condition in their 20s and their 30s aren't doing fabulously in their 60s and 70s. I do think much of it has to do with what you have been convinced is what a path looks like, not realizing that you have choice.
Yeah, definitely you have choice. And later on, we're going to learn a little bit about your experience with the food in India and your work with Sai Mai. So I'm glad that you're connecting the dots with all these different modalities that you studied.
So Sai Ma was my spiritual teacher, and I've been her body worker. And then, so I would get to attend some of her functions, and she did this yearly function, and she would always have an amazing doctor, an amazing homeopath, an amazing Ayurvedic doctor. And early on, she introduced us to Dr. Pankaj Naram. And then anytime there was something important, he showed up. And he would give these little impromptu lectures here and there, and you just hear his voice and you would just run to hear what he had to say. So that's why I really like his book, Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer. And the good news is a cookbook is coming out to follow that. Not only that, I'm co-writing a book about mung bean with Dr. Clint Rogers, so that will be another book that's coming.
Nice,
in the
exciting.
future,
So
something to
you've
look
been
forward to.
very busy since the last time we saw you 2 years ago.
And a lot on self-care. And if you have like a homeopathic remedy kit and you can see, I'm going to give you an example. I practice on my animals, and then I would practice on my kids, and then I would be brave to practice on a client. But one of the things, so now I'm practicing the Ayurvedics. So I had a horse that was falling down and he couldn't get back up. And when he would, and I was watching him like, is it time to put you down? Like we had a 2,500 pound one that we would have to lift up. I noticed that his joints were cracking like crazy. So I was like, well, what would I do for a person in Ayurvedic since I'm studying that now? How can I apply this? I added oil to his food. It was a very short period of time where you did not hear one crack, and he was happy. Now I have another old horse. She kept laying down, laying down, laying down. I thought her heart was going bad. The farrier came and said, no, she's having acute laminitis, and it's not good. It's the beginning of the end. You might as well put her down.
Aww.
Don't ask me, Tara, I have a student here you'll get to meet later. She said, well, let me look up turmeric. Can horses take turmeric? I wasn't really paying much attention. And I just heard her say, horses can have turmeric. It just lodged back there. And then one day when once the farrier said that and I realized there was some pain and inflammation involved with her laying down, I added just half a teaspoon of turmeric to the horse's food. She came running, she runs for every meal now. Before we couldn't get her to stand up to come and get a meal. And she comes and nickering.
Wow.
And I even put my grandchildren on her last week. So here's a horse where I thought I was going to have to put her down a month ago. So now I started taking more turmeric.
Good. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to learn more about these wonderful foods that you've been incorporating into your practice.
Thank you.
And you'll get to meet one of Anne's partners. Welcome back to Macro Magic. I'm Sheri DeMaris, and with me is Anne Wilkinson and her partner Tara. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is all out here as far as food
So Tara is my newest student, and I'm going to let her share, a little bit about what she's learned. This is some of the things I'm teaching her. So basically, when I treated people from a physical therapy or an osteopathic perspective, they seem to need to be treated like a couple of times a week for months. And sometimes it would stick, and sometimes it would stick for a week or longer. And then I noticed that homeopathy kind of gives people real quick relief from from, say, bleeding or trauma or green stuff coming out, real quick stuff, mental stuff, being so distressed. Homeopathy, bam, quick, that's great right away. Then we need to go and balance the body and make sure the lymph is flowing. But this part, the Ayurvedic part, my newest part, and where I'm really applying it to myself and seeing great results, it gives you stuff to do. And the things are in your kitchen. Like, you do have to venture out to an Indian store maybe to get holy basil or pomegranate powder or things that we don't usually use. Even cumin was a weird word for me, being Italian. So in the future, I want to learn more about, like, I'm in a 3-year program, so I'm learning about each different herb and what effect it has on the body, and it seems like a little complicated, but at the same time, it seems complicated when you're learning all the big words, but it's also so simple, and it gives people things to do for themselves, and it makes the fear go away. And love really is the key for healing. Love. And love and fear don't occupy the same place. So I feel like when we're offering these choices, it's with love. And people are loving themselves when they're doing that. And I think that's the gateway to healing. And Tara, so tell them, what was your experience with this? I mean, you came to learn body work, and then next thing you know, go ahead.
Well, I came to Anne to learn about everything she does, and also to learn about her animals, and to majorly detox myself, which I needed in many areas, but food was pretty prevalent, still is. And well, she taught me how to make mung bean soup, which is one of the healthiest things in the whole wide world. And when I first made it for my mom, one of my trips home, she looked at me and she said, "But the way you made it can't be the healthy way, right? This has other stuff in it." I said, "No, Mom, everything in this is absolutely good for you and helps with inflammation and all sorts of things in your body. And frankly, after a few times of eating it, you just feel a little bit lighter."
So do you want to just explain what are mung beans and how you have to cook them?
Well, so mung beans if you look at a chart of beans, mung beans is up here with protein, and then all the other ones start down here and work their way down. And then it just has these incredible principles, like it can mine out heavy metals. And then what's kind of neat is that once you start to detox and mine out things in your own body, next thing you know, you're like, oh, the clutter in my house, I can't take it. And you're cleaning that, and then all of a sudden your relationships are changing. You're like, maybe, like, things that are toxic become more evident to you once you're clean. So mung beans is a very powerful little bean, and the book will tell you so much more.
So you have to soak these,
You
right?
do. We soak, but
overnight.
people use the Instapot, and they do it quickly. I'm old-fashioned. I soak mine a little longer even than they say, and then I sometimes do 3 different things with my mung beans. So soup, and I'll make a porridge, and then like a mung bean hummus or a falafel. So when the cookbook comes out, some of these things I tested for the cookbook, and you'll have more things to do with mung bean other than just the soup. But the soup is a super detoxifier. Yes, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you buy them dried, you soak them overnight, and then you boil or pressure cook them or put them in Instapot.
So they have, like, the recipe's pretty specific. And what I've noticed in India is, like, it's super forgiving, but at the same time, when you do certain spices in certain proportions, it does one thing. And if you do those same spices in a different proportion, it'll do something else. Or like if your spice is a dry powder, it'll do something different than if it's the wet, fresh version.
So interesting to learn this, because in macrobiotics, it is based on the old Ayurvedic teachings. So the whole, doshas, and then we do the 5 transformations, which is similar to looking at energy and food. But we use a lot of similar ingredients. We don't use so many spices unless we're living in a hotter climate.
I am certain that in China, if you went there and could explain to them in Chinese these elements, and then they would tell you the herbs, you would go, and in India, those same herbs would have the same properties as those, and like those ancient civilizations were doing much the same. And then if you go all the way over to Jamaica, and the bush doctors, they're doing it too. So somehow that ancient knowledge has survived.
It's like the 12th monkey or whatever. Just
the 10th monkey, yes.
10th monkey just gets picked up. Well, tell us a little bit about the spices.
Yeah, tell them about this one here, because she's always...
One of my favorite things that we make is, Anne calls it an immune paste. And it's pretty simple ingredients. It's just honey, chopped up garlic cloves, cinnamon, tulsi leaves or holy basil, Remind me of what the other ones are?
Turmeric, cinnamon. These recipes are in the book, Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer, and they're specific proportions. But this is all stuff that's in your kitchen?
Yes.
Except the Tulsi
This
leaves.
is specific for inflammation, or what do you take it
If
for?
you feel like you're getting a cold, or you're just feeling under the weather, or you already have a cold, this is something that once you mix it all together, it forms a paste. And you can either, and sometimes myself, we like to just eat it off the spoon because it's sweet with the honey and hot and spicy with the garlic. But you can also turn it into a tea, which you usually do if you have children around. And also if you have children around, I personally add a little bit more honey because it's sweeter. And it just, within a few hours, honestly, you start to feel maybe not so mucus-filled, or your energy is just bumped up just a little bit.
It moves your circulation.
It gets definitely.
So I would
you can
try
feel it.
rice syrup instead of honey in macrobiotics, simply because we don't use honey. But
Thank you.
very nice recipe.
I cried when I found out in Ayurvedics you're not supposed to heat your honey. So, like, yes, and you know, I would
Or
use it.
olive oil.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of these little things that we don't know, and we think we may be doing something good for us, and we may be not doing the right process. So I thank you for telling me that. This immune paste, I call it immune paste. Again, it's in Ancient Secrets, and they introduce it like a tea, where you take that and turn it into a tea. But see, I've been giving it to goats and dogs and things like that. So
Yes.
I have goats who
The
will get like
animals.
an infected hoof, or they'll get a cough. And even this one goat, the very first, I had just known about this, but I never thought to give it to the goat. And it was coughing, 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 and it sounded like it was just going to die, like the cough was definitely getting worse. And I was like, what do I have to lose? Like, I don't know if anything in here will hurt the goat, but it's going to die.
Now, do you give it to the goat in terms of a tea or
No,
on a spoon?
I mix all these up, and it makes like a little paste, and then I go like this, and then I go out there and I just like take their little lip and go, and then sometimes they like it and lick it even. And then my dogs, twice, I thought they had Lyme disease. I can
Wow.
tell how they act. They just are not themselves. And I gave them a dose of this also, and I canceled my vet appointment. So like, it's fantastic. Now my
my
grandchildren, like, you do have to dose up because the garlic, sometimes it'll hit you right here. You're like, whoo, it almost feels like some hair sprouted out of your chest, or like it cleaned out, like, whoo. The garlic will hit you sometimes hard. So be careful of that, but it also, you know, does what it's supposed to do.
And then what are the spices in the...
So we're just learning that. So I had an Indian woman visiting me in my home, and she was just like, those beans are not so good. I'm like, they're organic. And then she would be like, oh, you didn't smoke off the hing. Now it's poison, what you didn't know. Like, things like this. I was so insulted. I was like, oh. But she taught me things, you know. She really did these little nuances. And so one of the things that I want to get into in the future more is like where you grind your spices fresh. You know, so that when you go to make the soup, you take these seeds and you grind them yourself, and the smell, and it's so fragrant and fresh. So they kind of like, she seemed to poo-poo when I had all my things dry powdered and taken them out of the plastic bags.
She wants them fresh.
She kind of,
Yeah.
that's where we're going
Ground
next,
fish.
with like being able to, there's so much to learn, you know, and that even makes it more exciting that you master one thing. When you first look at it, it seems overwhelming, but then you master how to make ghee. You master how to make the soup. Then you see the immune paste doing these neat things. And then there's this Amrapali formula that you make, and it makes you youthful. And there was a story about a king who would pick his queen before his young concubines, and she said her secret was these herbs.
Oh, nice.
And again, there's maybe
There's
two that we
so
had to go
much
to the
to
Indian
learn.
store for. Oh,
So much in all these cultures, Korean, Chinese. Anyway, Anne, we have to wrap up, so we want to thank you for being on the show. After 2 years of not seeing you, you look great.
Tara's been my student for 2 months.
3 months.
Is it
Over 3
months
months
now?
now.
Nice.
What do you see improved in you?
My health overall, and honestly, I'll say that my anxiety is lessened because it's given me some empowerment to know that I have ways to help myself, my family members, and animals, which
Nice.
is really
That's
nice.
beautiful. So how can people reach you if they want to reach out for a treatment or take a class? Where can they reach you?
So do we have our slide with our
I
information
did send
on it?
one, but there is Facebook. You are on Facebook as Anne
Ann
Wilkinson.
Wilkinson, Amoga Life, AMOGALIFE.com. And I am on Facebook, Ann Wilkinson, and also Amoga Life, one word.
Nice.
But yes, please, any questions that you have, please contact me, because using the Ayurvedics and the homeopathy and the osteopathy together is so powerful.
Yeah, such a great healer. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Thank you, viewers, for
grateful.
watching. Make sure to check out our website, macromagic.com, to get all the updates on the TV shows and the recipes. And we thank you for coming.
Thank you for all your work and this good information you're bringing to the world.
That's great. And we'll see everybody next time.
Yes.